We are one copper wire away from chaos. Last week, Newark's air traffic control system went dark for 90 seconds.
As this unfolds at Newark and with air traffic control around the country, Democrats like Chuck Schumer are already jumping in to blame President Trump, new Transportation Secretary Sean Duffy, and DOJ. But as the Wall Street Journal points out, Chuck Schumer has opposed important reforms to this for several years and is just now finding his voice. And one dynamic that we've been hearing about from the beginning of the Trump administration is, as Secretary Duffy took over, he was horrified to find that air traffic control stations around the country were still relying on things like floppy disks and Post-it notes to control the skies. It's also important to note that President Biden and Mayor Pete Buttigieg, while they discuss spending a lot of money on improving our transit systems, most of that money never made it to them. And we also know that discussing things like air traffic control and transportation safety was not as big a priority for Secretary Pete Buttigieg as things like Transit Equity Day.
Transportation equity means making sure that we have policies that serve everybody. And we know, for example, when it comes to racial justice in this country, this is one of the biggest things that I think is at stake in transportation policy.
Thank goodness Secretary Buttigieg was finally there to deal with those racist roads. Anytime you saw Secretary Buttigieg on TV, he most likely wasn't talking about transportation issues, but he was talking about every other issue, things like abortion or visiting Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky. We are not clear on what that visit and that photo op had to do with fixing U.S. transportation, but likely our tax dollars paid for it, and he likely did it on a private plane. Perhaps one of my favorite Secretary Buttigieg nuggets came from this article about him, from Wired. As Secretary Buttigieg and I talked in his underfurnished corner office one afternoon in early spring, I slowly became aware that his cabinet job requires only a modest portion of his cognitive powers. Other mental facilities, no kidding, are apportioned to the Iliad, Puritan historiography, and Nosgard Spring, though not in the original Norwegian, slacker. Fortunately, he was willing to devote yet another apse in his cathedral mind to making his ideas about three mighty themes, neoliberalism, masculinity, and Christianity, intelligible to me. Wow. Perhaps he should have used a little bit more of that cathedral mind to focus on fixing our transportation sector. But Secretary Duffy later today will announce a plan to reform the air traffic control system. We'll report back on that next week, but airlines are already lining up behind this as a critical move to try and fix the transportation system in our country.